question, or firstly give you a congratulations for being one of the UK's fastest growing brands in 2020. And can you give me a kind of a quick overview of how this year has been for you in terms of supercharging your growth here?
Well, it's been a fairly remarkable year. Try not to use the word unprecedented, but it kind of has been unprecedented, I think. And from Just Eat's point of view, that it's played out in a number of different ways. I think we started the year really sort of pushing forward in our goal and our ambition to really cement and grow our market leadership position in the UK. And we did that through the sponsorship of Love Island and through that sort of continued sort of development of our comms platform. But obviously in March, COVID struck. And I think as market leader, our responsibilities and our focus changed. And that really meant that our role became much more one of support for our industry and for our wider surroundings. So from a Just Eat point of view, we obviously have our restaurants, we have our couriers, and we have our customers as well. And it became important for us as an organization, but also as a marketing function, to make sure that we were doing things that were helping those groups who were going through incredibly difficult times. And whether that was building and communicating restaurant support and courier support packages, whether it was turning our comms towards discounts for NHS workers, working with the likes of ITV and the BBC on things like the Big Night In or Britain Get Talking, it became sort of incredibly and increasingly important that we were able to fulfill that role as significant players within those spaces. The sort of narrative, I think, has continued to change, and the landscapes continue to change. And I think we saw that role that we could play as being one of injecting a little normality back into the world. And I think our brand platform is one of delivering joy, and there felt like there was no better way of delivering joy than bringing our new campaign with Snoop to the fore in May of this year. And it was a platform that we'd had for a while. It had been available and ready basically since the end of March. And it was key for us to stay really close to consumer data, for us to understand from a gut point of view what felt right from a national sentiment perspective before we then took that platform out to market. And I think it's been a great success for us. It's helped us to really grow and develop the brand. We've really reached out then into some of the things that have become part of the new normal. So everyone's watching sport from home, particularly football. So we sort of extended out our reach into that space. And then particularly as we've had the opportunity to roll out some of the biggest brands in the UK, particularly the likes of McDonald's, Greggs, Pret, all new to the platform, we've been able to take those out. So it's been a busy 3 quarters of the year so far, and it shows no sign of abating.
It certainly sounds that way. You mentioned a couple of things in there about some of your bigger TV campaigns, and I know that Just Eat has really been investing in brand building over the last couple of years, and obviously your success in the last few months is a result of that hard work as well. How will you be evolving your media investment in the next 12 months for the next stage of that growth?
We see investment in the brand as key to building the business. It's absolutely fundamental. And as you say, we've always been investors in TV, but that's been particularly the case this year, whether it be through those bigger sponsorships like Love Island, or whether it be through sort of investments in sport, particularly through, as we said, when we launched Snoop, and how we've continued to take that through some of the biggest properties on TV and into the sort of the homes of the nation during lockdown and thereafter. But I also think there are big changes that we've seen in the media and in the media consumption landscape. So those platforms that were emerging, the likes of Twitch, TikTok, have just seen huge acceleration in that emergence, and the growth in those audience numbers has been phenomenal. And we've used those as well to help us to reach audiences who are, as we know, consuming media in a very different way, particularly those younger audiences. So whether that's TikTok takeovers, whether that's working with gaming influencers on Twitch, whether that's working really closely with platforms like Snap, with Facebook, with Twitter as well, we've done a lot to ensure that we're actually in front of as broader and as engaged an audience as we can.
Do you see those younger audiences in particular are more likely to discover your brand through social media, or are those TV sponsorships targeting programs in that demographic equally as important when it comes to referrals into your brand?
I think TV is still key. So TV plays a unique role in people's lives. It's a different environment to consume. It's an environment whereby people are in a different headspace, and still the best place to get mass brand adoption, to really build your brand, is TV. But I think there is increasingly, with that 1834 market, as we know, is not a surprise to anyone, but that's been a declining TV audience, and their media consumption has been diversifying. So whether it is YouTube, whether it's a lot of the platforms I mentioned already around, that's a Snapchat, TikTok, etc. It's important that as a brand we're there, but we've got to be there in an authentic way. And it's been really important for us to build content and to build around our brand in a way that is native to those platforms and ensures that actually what we're doing feels right for those customers in that place. It's not simply a case of taking your TV ad and trying to sort of squash it together and push it into another format. It's about building content that's genuinely native to those platforms.
Brilliant. So you mentioned a few of the media trends that are shaping your plan moving forward, but obviously the rise of the at-home economy in the wake of COVID-19 in particular will be a huge trend defining 2021 and one that fits your business perfectly. What specific new behaviours are you noticing at Just Eat within your consumers, and how do you intend to respond to that?
I think you're right. COVID has driven the sort of the exponential growth of the at-home economy, and I think we've seen that in our business. We saw in the first half globally over 32% year-on-year growth for the Just Eat business. We've also seen a sort of a significant growth in the number of restaurants on our platform. So thousands have come to Just Eat as they've seen a change in the way in which consumers are behaving, and they've seen a sort of a significant uplift in food delivery as a way of customers getting that, I guess, little slice of normal that they've been looking for. So in terms of the way in which we've responded to that, I think a big part has been what I referred to earlier on, which is the way in which we've supported that industry and made sure that it's sustainable and it is it becomes an area whereby restaurants feel as though they can genuinely grow their business in a sustainable and interesting way for them. And that's making sure that we're bringing to bear all the best insight we can around food delivery, around making sure that we make it as economic and as profitable as we possibly can for them. And that really is because we are seeing those changes in consumer behavior, which we described. So that there's a few that really stand out for me, one of which is we're eating our dinner earlier, and we're eating our dinner earlier as a family. And we've seen it come forward almost an hour and a half in terms of the peak that we see on Just Eat. It's the death of the commute, really. So if we've not got to squeeze ourselves onto a train or onto a bus or into a car, and actually we're able to get downstairs and spend some time with the family, which we've seen a lot of. So we've seen an increase in basket size as well, which suggests that people are eating together. And then finally, I think the one that's sort of emerged maybe over the last couple of months has been this growth in what you might describe as holiday destination cuisines. So we've seen a real uplift recently in Turkish, in Greek, in Thai, in Vietnamese. And I have less data to back this up, but it feels very much to us as though we're starting to see people sort of realizing the holiday's not going to happen this year. And actually they want a little taste of what might have been, if you like. So
yeah, one of the major trends we're seeing this year, obviously, is a huge increase in e-commerce and direct-to-consumer as well. Also, in terms of how much brands are spending on advertising in e-commerce platforms, has been a major emerging trend through COVID-19. What lessons have you learned from scaling up a mobile-based e-commerce business that you would share with those looking to create that capability for their own businesses now?
I think those learnings are pretty simple, really. I think it's ensuring that the customer is at the heart of everything you do. And it sounds like a little bit of a platitude, but I think what we've found is that what our customers want and how they use us has changed over time. And you need to start from a point of view that you're delivering and producing and selling something that people want. And that sounds like an obvious thing, but there are enough businesses built around a good idea that nobody wanted. We used to be a traditional marketplace. We had independent restaurants on one side of our business, customers on the other, and we link them together. We've seen customer trend change, and people want something different, and people want food, whether it be from the big QSRs that we talked about earlier on, or whether it's from sort of smaller independent eat-in restaurants. So we've built a logistics business that has helped us to deliver that to our customers. So we've kind of created this hybrid business that sort of houses all of that, which is fantastic for us because it allows us to maintain that sort of profitable business that we've always run, but has meant that we've constantly needed to understand what our customers want, what they're doing, where there are those emerging trends. And it's always difficult to pick the right ones. You've got to be, you pick a few wrong ones over the course, but you need to make sure that actually what you're doing is continuing to be relevant and, I think, at the forefront of what people want. And if you can do that, I think you'll make a huge success.
And logistics is part of the new customer experience when it comes to e-commerce, right? It can make or break your brand.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And I think your ability to and coming back to the previous theme, to make sure that you are delivering something to a customer that is there in the time they expect it to be, in the way they expect it to arrive, is increasing. We're only seeing expectations rising. People are expecting things quicker. People are expecting things, a whole variety of different things to arrive. And it's about building business and building a structure that allows us to do that, allows us to be flexible enough to meet all of those various different needs.
One of the things you mentioned earlier was some of those really exciting consumer trends that are emerging and shaping your business and giving not just you new opportunities, but also many of the customers and restaurant businesses that you work with new opportunities as well. How have you changed how you're generating consumer insights and using data within the last few months? This is a really volatile period. Are you making any changes to get things done faster?
Yeah, well, it's a challenge. So as a business, we've always had the luxury of data. We take over 1 million data points every day on Just Eat. So it's always key to use those in a way that means you're getting genuine insight and you're understanding what's going on from a customer and a restaurant and a courier perspective. And then you can start to translate that into meaningful improvements that can help to make their experience a better one. I think we've looked at ways in which we can enrich that data in a world where we haven't been able to do the things we used to. So certainly over the course of the last couple of weeks, I've been in a number of virtual focus groups where we've been getting people together to understand how they're feeling sort of more broadly about the sort of the macro situation, but also understanding a bit more about how they're interacting with food delivery and with Just Eat over the period. Also working really closely with the restaurants. So Just Eat are part of the British Takeaway campaign. So under normal circumstances, we get together with all of the various different contributors and leaders within the takeaway space and work really closely with them on how we build and advocate for that particular group. That's been done over Zoom and been done over WhatsApp and has been done in a whole load of different mediums that have really enabled us to keep doing that work and keep representing the industry in the best way that we can. So you have to change, you do, and you have to sort of adapt new methods. But I think the key thing is really taking that time to engage with those various different groups, whether they be customer groups or whether they be restaurant groups.
Yeah, I think speaking of that change in the data space, there's obviously a lot of new data regulation impacting brands here in Europe and also elsewhere. When it comes to the idea of a cookieless future or more regulation in the data space, what do you expect that to look like in terms of the future of your data-driven marketing efforts?
Well, I think we envision a future of that remains data-driven throughout our marketing. But I would say that our approach is to sort of build those fundamentals. We have built good practice across our various different digital channels, but we're always looking at ways in which we can use data and insight to help supplement that and to make it smarter. I think there is always a danger that certain sort of areas of digital marketing become over-engineered and are looking at various different ways in which they're able to sort of pull a sort of a data source in order that they can enhance a media placement, whatever it might be. I think the old adage remains that if you have good content and you put it in the right context, then you will be successful in what you're doing from a marketing point of view. And that obviously endures not just for digital, but for all advertising. And I think we're continuing to work as regulation changes, as platforms change as well, to make sure that we are constantly testing ways in which we can ensure that our comms remain relevant, interesting and engaging for our customers, and that we're able to bring the right content to the right people at the right time.
Yeah, that's a really interesting answer, I think, and one that a lot of other brands will relate to who are going through the same thing that you are. Next question is a bit of more of a philosophical one, I suppose. What would you say is the single biggest challenge, and the single biggest opportunity facing Just Eat in the next 12 months?
We've just gone through a merger with takeaway.com, which has created Just Eat Takeaway, and that makes us the biggest food delivery business in the world outside of China. And the opportunities that brings are huge. That means that we're able to really invest in success and to make sure that we are doing the right things across the board, whether that be investing in our brand, investing in our customer experience, investing in our restaurant base, and really, really building the very best of the best in all of those areas. So the opportunity for us really stands out there. In terms of uncertainty and challenge as we go forward, I think it is the obvious answer, really, and that we don't know what the future is going to hold in any way, shape or form like we did before. So I think the sense that we're able to see forward more than a couple of weeks at the moment in terms of what the national picture is going to look like, in terms of what our industry is going to look like, is hard. So I think it's important to maintain that sort of confidence in what we're doing as a brand, to maintain that single-minded focus in what we want to do, but also to ensure that we're listening and we're engaged with all of those various different stakeholders, whether they be restaurants, whether they be couriers, whether they be consumers, to ensure that when things are changing and when they are looking for something different from us as a brand, that we're able to react and we're able to do something that brings that to play. And we saw that happen for us during, I think, the first lockdown, and we're constantly keeping abreast of everything that's going on from as I say, from both an industry perspective, but also from a sort of a wider macro perspective, to make sure that we can act quickly as and when we see changes that are pertinent. And that plays through to even the smallest things. We're every time the government has a 5 p.m. news conference, we've got to disseminate that pretty quickly and pass that out to our restaurant partners and make sure that we're providing that information. So that never stops, and it's important for us that it doesn't.